On today's episode of the Superconscious podcast, we are joined by Gargi from India, all the way from India. And Gargi had come and done a private retreat with us back in August, and we are recording on
August 2023.
in August 2023. We are in January 2024, so it's been about 4 months since the retreat, and we are going to dive into the experience during the retreat and all the shifts that have taken place after the retreat. So, Gargi, would you like to introduce yourself a bit? Tell us a bit about what you do,
Who you are,
who you are.
what you're all about.
Okay. Wow, that's a power pack question. What I do, well, I run a business. It's a co-working space in Mumbai, which is one of the busiest cities of the world, where space is at a premium, very little space available. So what we do is we provide space to freelancers, to startups, to entrepreneurs to conduct their business. And we also host a lot of interesting events and workshops on how to grow in your life. That's what I do. I also believe, though, that I'm not defined by what I do. It's so many other things. I particularly enjoy outdoors. I am a hiker. I'm a scuba diver. I have flown a plane. I have gone to at least 5 Himalayan mountains and summited them. I'm a trained mountaineer. So that's my outdoorsy, exciting adventure side. I like playing games. I'm a chess player, and I play a lot of other board games. So that's the part which I enjoy because of strategy, skill, and gameplay. And in the arts, I enjoy sketching, doodling, oil painting, and my favorite thing in the world to do is dance. So I love dancing, ecstatic dancing, especially in Goa. So that pretty much sums up who I am personally. I hail from a fairly wealthy business family in Mumbai that has colored my perspective, my life, and my identity. It's been my identity for a long time that I'm born into abundance and I live with abundance. I've never in the menu card seen the right side, which tells you how much a dish costs, because I believe I can most likely afford it. So I come from that place, and that's had its own tricky relationship with money. So that's pretty much it.
You forgot something. What about your new passion of aqua yoga?
Oh. Until I do enough, I'm not going to talk about it. But yes, I love.
Yeah, it's a new passion, but it's amazing.
Yeah, but not acro yoga, but I love yoga. Yoga is actually the goal of my life is self-realization and to discover who I really am. And the journey has started really with yoga, meditation, and pranayama, where through breath work and through certain poses and focus and balance, you get to understand who you really are. So I've done a yoga teacher training course, and I still practice yoga practically every day. In fact, it's my New Year resolution to do yoga every day. So yeah, that's true. Thank you.
So that was the core of what brought you to the private retreat that you
That's
did with.
right.
That was definitely a big missing piece. So yeah, that aspect of your spiritual life is what brought you for the retreat. But not only that, you also had spoken about going through transitions. You were about to, or you were invited into your family business, and there was several things that were going on, even like in your own business. Like you were transitioning in your life when you came for the retreat. That was one of your big intentions coming to the retreat, is to prepare for the other side of this transition and to enter into it with, like, your power intact. So we did a private retreat with ayahuasca. It was not just an ayahuasca retreat, it was a retreat with ayahuasca, because there was a lot more than just the ayahuasca. And that's what we want to dive into. Like, of course, we want to talk about ayahuasca and the experience you had with the plant, and then also what you got beyond that, which was probably unexpected or beyond your expectations of what you had thought you will get. So can you speak about that? Like, what expectations you came in with and what happened then?
What expectations I came in with? Ayahuasca, when I entered, when I decided to sign up for it, the real thing was to know how it could possibly transform my life. Also, there was a curiosity of what I would feel like when I was going to be consuming it and explore different dimensions and see what that world is like. Other than that, the expectations were really misplaced. I realize on hindsight, because I thought, oh, it's going to be a certain way, it's going to be a certain kind of a trip, it's going to make me feel crazy, I'm going to puke. I had a lot more, my expectations were based on certain commonly held misbeliefs, so to speak. Nonetheless, I was curious to take my life from where it was to the next level. And not just ayahuasca, the fact that you were going to be leading or in some way connected to the retreat, and that you suggested that if you are ready, go for it. I felt ready in a way that I can't explain, that I felt ready, that I wanted to take my life to the next level. I didn't know what the next level would look like, but whatever that would be, I felt like I was ready for that. So that essentially is the reason why I jumped in when I got the chance.
So yeah, like that's very interesting as you talk about misbelief, because yeah, there's a lot of literature and experiences out there about ayahuasca, because people have either had their own experience or there are these discussions going on. But a lot of the experiences are conducted by people who don't have a lot of experience, or they're conducted in a certain setting or certain culture or whatever it is. And one of the big things from my own experience, like being a facilitator for almost 9 years now, is that who is conducting it and the setting that you're in makes a tremendous difference. Because if the person who's holding the ceremony doesn't have their own energy intact and doesn't know how to hold the space, it's very chaotic and there's all kinds of crazy things happening, which is what most of the narrative is on the internet. But what you got to experience was something very different, where the energy was very well contained. So let's talk about that. Like, okay, these were your misbeliefs, but what was the actual experience?
Well, firstly, I realized within like a few hours of interacting with both of you that ayahuasca was going to be a part of the retreat. And both of you are like life coaches. So to really spend about 7 to 8 days with two phenomenal life coaches, that in itself is a journey where it's not just taking sessions, 1 hour sessions or 2 hour sessions, it's practically cohabiting in the same space. So right from how we cook, how we interact in the daily life, how we go for a walk, how we go to the supermarket to buy something or a flea market, I could experience what it is like to live with two evolved souls. For me, that was a huge part of the retreat. That part clubbed with the ayahuasca experience, which internally, of course, elevated my energy levels, which took me to another dimension. That and then coming back from it and discussing it openly every time, so how was your trip? What did you learn? What are you going through? What are your takeaways? And making sense of the small and the big things, including the joke I would crack. And, you would pick up something from that joke, that why are you joking about this? So it felt fairly organic. It didn't feel like a very structured meeting. And at the same time, it addressed everything that a structured interaction or a therapy session does. So for me, it was a great blend of living with two evolved souls and taking a beautiful herb that enhances and makes you really go deep. So it was a combo pack, so to speak.
Yeah. And so you have done therapy before, like we don't need to go into the details of that, but you've had experience with therapy. You do not have much experience with coaching. But what we were doing was like something that goes beyond regular coaching and therapy, as you explained. It's like it's not just you sit for a session and you get all of this very strategy kind of coaching or this like all of this big therapy deep dive and all of that, but it's like something that is combining all of that but taking it much further, where it's like lifestyle, where it's energy, where there is so many more dimensions to it. So that also was something that you took into the ayahuasca experience, because there was, so we were living in a house together where, we each had our own room. And so we had, yeah, like you had your space, but then there was a lot of interaction in between. And some of those interactions, like you said, they would be casually, we cooking together, eating together, going out for walks to the beaches, the beautiful beaches of Bahia. Um, and then there would also be proper sessions in between where we would have preparation either for the ceremony, or we would have integration after the ceremony and all of that. So you were also learning skills and techniques that were preparing you and seeding you for the experience. How did that play into the actual experience? Like, so we did, like, even before the retreat started, we spent an evening where we were just preparing you, like, okay, these are the guidelines, this is the structure. So you said that it wasn't structured, but the structure, I would say, was more organic, that it doesn't feel like this rigid structure of how we experience structure in institutions usually, but this is a much more organic structure where you feel contained, where you feel safe, but you don't feel like you're restricted in an inappropriate way. If there is a limit, it has logic. You've already been told why the limit exists. It's for your safety, it's for you to have the most optimal experience. So how did all of that play? Like, how did the preparation play into the actual experience? And let's dive into the experience itself too.
The preparation was super useful. Preparation right from the start, like the details and the tone in which it all began. It never felt that I was compelled to do something. I must not, I should not, I should. Although they were clearly laid out, it never felt oppressive. It never felt too much. And actually, almost the smallest rule, technically, eventually, after my ayahuasca journeys, I realized why they existed. Because sometimes in an experience, I would remember that, oh, this, no, this, yes, this, and that would help. So the preparation was super useful. The big part, which I think helped for me, was the attention to the intention. Like every time you would focus on what is your intention. And we had four evenings of experiencing ayahuasca, and in each of those evenings, each of those individual experiences, I remember how setting the intention played a pivotal role in taking it to the next level. I also enjoyed the fact that since all three of us were taking it, I could hear like your intentions and understand that what other intentions were more like, say, more interesting, not interesting really, but almost I wanted to steal some of those intentions, like that's actually my intention. Maybe I didn't have the words for it, right? So the intention setting was super helpful. And in fact, I felt that with that intention setting, without the ayahuasca also, I felt like it was already a push, that I got clarity that this is the intention. It was not just, okay, let me go to Brazil and try ayahuasca. It's like, what is my intention? And what is my intention each time, every day? For 8 days, I'm constantly questioning the intention and listening to other people grow in their intentions. So it was like very useful. So that was one of my most interesting parts. And after the experience, you would again integrate it with the intention. And honestly, there were times when I would have an intention, but ayahuasca experience would not throw direct light on that intention, or I would feel that it's not met. But so many other things which perhaps I needed to hear or understand were discovered in that journey. So both of those things were like a learning experience.
I just want to reflect on what you said, because it's super important that how much of our lives we live on automatic mode, where
Yeah.
we just keep doing things without intention. because that's what we are supposed to do. That's what we are used to doing. That's what people tell us we should be doing. And we never actually stop to think, why am I doing it? Or even if it's something as important as ayahuasca. So you even had an ayahuasca experience before coming for the retreat,
Yes.
like several years ago. And I
Yes.
imagine like without, it was without such preparation, without such intention. And
Yeah.
like, it's not just you get to live life intentionally for 8 days and that's the end of it, and then you go back to being a robot. That actually transforms you from within, where you bring that intentionality into every day and every aspect of your life. It's like, do I really want this in my life anymore? Do I want to live this way? How do I want to do things? So, like, that is a fundamental aspect of the retreat, is that, and our coaching overall, is that we are shifting people into that level of intentionality, that every tiny detail you are measuring if you want to have it in your life or not. So this is why it goes much beyond coaching. It's like coaching in a 1 hour session, you can only do so much, but when you're actually having to live 8, 9, 15, 20, whatever number of days in that level of consciousness, where everything is being, transformed within you. It's like you can't go back to your everyday life and just forget it. Like your system has already shifted, and
Yeah.
to lose all of that becomes kind of impossible. And that's also what we will dig into later, because so after the retreat we have had several conversations. Some of them were just casual catch-ups, and then in between there will be these mini coaching sessions. And in that, you were sharing with us that the way your whole life and your being and your thinking upgraded, because it just shifted. It wasn't like I have to put a lot of effort. It's like, no, I have already transformed. So we'll get to that. But before that, let's dive into the meaty ayahuasca experience. Non-meaty because it's vegan, but
Exactly. Oh, that was my joke. Yes.
juicy.
Uh,
The better term.
Juicy. Yeah, it was juicy. Juicy ayahuasca experience. Honestly, it is hard to decouple the ayahuasca experience from the interactions we've had, because it was like a DNA double helical intertwining that you can't really disintegrate. Having said that, all the four ayahuasca experiences had their own flavor, had their own journey, and they were quite diverse. So fundamentally, I feel the ayahuasca experience is hard to describe in words. I've been seeking that description before I entered the set of let me do ayahuasca. I've been wanting people to share how it is. And now I realize I'm on that side of the table where I'm describing an experience, and I realize that it's quite hard to put in words really how one feels. The best way I feel I can describe is that I could see myself in HD and life in HD. Like I was going from regular vision to super high def vision of what it felt to be me, what it felt to live in this earth experience, as we called it. And similarly, what feelings feel like, what awareness feels like, what cold feels like, what having a dog on you feels like. So everything was quite enhanced, and that enhancement I realized was the lasting flavor of everything. And since everything was enhanced and in HD, even my understanding, I could spot a lot of conflicts in my own head. I could see the pain and the hurt and the wounds that I was carrying without having to mask them or ignore them. Even some of my emotions, like feeling abandoned or feeling lost or feeling out of place, wanting to connect with my family, those emotions were hugely amplified. And I felt like a strong sense of wanting to go back home the next day and, actually not wanting to finish the retreat. I cannot believe that I actually went even in that space where I was like, why am I in all of this? Where I know exactly what I want to do, which is go back and fix everything. And that I'm glad that you guided me through that tough patch, both of you. But that is also telling that that sense of clarity, that sense of understanding emerged immediately after the first experience of ayahuasca. So for me, each experience has been a sense of increasing in clarity in what I see, feel, and understand. And I think naturally, when I could see things clearly, what to do or how to operate, how to respond became evident. Before ayahuasca, I didn't have that clarity. So I was sort of shooting in the dark or at least in dim light. But this was like full light or a lot of light at least. And I could see all a lot of what was within me. That to me is like the big takeaway for me from ayahuasca.
That is super interesting. Two things that I want to reflect on is that one, you spoke about the emotion, like a lot of emotions which were not on the surface, they had just been pushed away, or you did not want to feel them or whatever. They started coming to the surface. And then you spoke about you just knew how to deal with them, you knew what you need to do, and it was just clarity. So while there was some preparation and we were guiding you, it sounds like in that moment, in that experience, in that state, you also activated your inner guidance system, which you already knew how to deal with life. And that's something I love talking about, is that, coaching and all of this is not about telling you what to do and how to live life. Like a lot of spirituality, a lot of personal development is about giving you these prescriptions and these rules about how you're supposed to live. But sounds like what happened for you is it activated this inner guidance system where you have your own way of navigating life. And you don't need to do anything but unblock it. You don't need to do anything but allow it to emerge. And that happens by shedding all of these layers of rules and compulsions and obligations and shoulds and all of this that are blocking it. Like the moment, so one of the things that ayahuasca does is that it lifts that shadow or that shell that we have been living in, identified with. And all of a sudden, you come into that clarity. And it's possible to actually just live in that state permanently going forward. You don't, like, the shell doesn't need to come back. You can just lift the shell and it's like, okay, here I am, and I'm just going to live from here. And that is the beauty of it. So that is one thing that's very
And that is
powerful.
such an empowering place to be also when you reconnect with that knowingness and conviction of, oh my God, I have all the power and I know who I am and I know how to navigate and I trust myself. And that I even remember how the journey throughout the retreat, how bit by bit, you became more and more comfortable and confident in yourself. Where in the beginning it was like, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right, and like asking for permission, asking for validation, and then bit by bit, you were, like you said, like that unlifted, like basically you unlocked your full power. And by the end of the retreat, you were like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know how to navigate. I know where to look for answers. I know that I shouldn't go all over the place and ask questions, because I know that all of the answers are within myself. And that trust within you was so prominent, and it was so powerful to see that journey and how you evolved from day one to the very end and beyond the retreat when we were having the catch-ups.
Yeah. And then coming back to the emotion is something that is scary for a lot of people. Repressed emotions are like the scariest thing, especially when you bring it into the context of therapy. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to go there, I don't want to deal with this shit, I'll just power through and die, and I don't have to deal with my emotions. And or they go into therapy and it has to be this long ordeal and years and decades and all of this. And one of the most common things about ayahuasca that's out there is like, it's 10 years of therapy in one night or in 1 week. And it's like a lot of things that you were not able to access suddenly become accessible, and they resolve also. It's not like this shit came up, but also the resolution happens because there's guidance, because you have feedback, you have integration, all of this. So there are many people who go for ayahuasca or take psychedelics, and it just unleashes the shit, and it unleashes the shit, and it's not resolution. So like that's what the combination of coaching plus ayahuasca was, that you get to actually move through it. Plus you have your inner guidance and the space, the energy is being held, which is for transmuting all of this and to reach that higher state of consciousness. So there are many factors involved. And I think one more aspect which I would like you to speak about is perhaps the energy of the space of feeling accepted, feeling not judged, if you are feeling that way. Not saying you were, like I'm asking, like, is that what you felt?
I certainly felt that, and then some. It started with me feeling very unsure that I'm going to be cohabiting with two people, and I knew that y'all are wonderful people, but it was also the first time having met you in person after so many years, and Ruta, for the first time meeting you, so there was certainly a lot of hesitation and uncertainty in me. And I've also never lived with dogs in the same house. So there were three of them. So I was unsure of the whole thing. Again, being in Brazil, away the other end of the world, in a beautiful house, but within the house, within that setup. So there was hesitation, there was doubt, there was uncertainty, and there was some fair degree of skepticism. And I almost felt like I'm intruding when I, in the first day, in fact, I felt like I was intruding, and I would seek permission, and I would tiptoe around to not disturb anybody. And I guess that was also a reflection of, later, as we discussed, how I live life. Like I like to not make a scene, which is how I pictured myself. And then eventually during the retreat, I felt really welcome. I felt like encouraged, and I felt like celebrated. It was almost like you can do whatever your heart desires within a certain fair degree of what makes sense. And it felt liberating that I could be truly friends with you, and at the same time be guided by you, and at the same time share this beautiful experience as you also go through it. It was yours also, like, one of the initial times for you, Ruta. So it was like we're in it together. We know what we're going to do. We have our inner guiding light. We have each other. We know each other's intentions. We have the music. We have the energetic setup. And it felt like three people and the dogs going on a voyage for like 8 days, and there are small twists and turns, and it does get uncomfortable, and there are dynamics even between the three of us and the dogs and everything, but that's the nature of life. And it was like, for me, it was like the whole life story compressed into a short 8-day movie that I lived with these beautiful protagonists. And it really, almost all life experiences, at least internally, the emotional aspect of it, I went through the trauma, the love, the joy, the doing of things together, the feeling left out, the immense love one feels for family, everything, a lot of it, all the flavors were captured in those 8 days for me.
Well, can you speak a little bit more about living with three dogs? How was your
Living and experiencing ayahuasca with three dogs. It's not just living. It's like, because not in every ceremony, but in some ceremonies, they became part of the experience and a crucial part of the experience too.
Exactly. Earlier, I thought they would somehow, because of my upbringing, I guess, and how we look at dogs in Bombay. Really, most of them are street dogs in Europe. I haven't had personal experience with pets, so earlier I was skeptical. But in one of those journeys of ayahuasca, I remember the dogs came and sat on the same bed as I was, and in that journey, something completely dissolved in me that was there forever in me, the fear, the uncertainty of interacting with an animal, of being accepted. And we literally, three of us, two dogs and me, slept on the same thin bed, and we could do it. And the tongue of the dog was here, and I typically I would feel either icky or unsure. Here I embraced it. And to me, that was like a big letting go, a big release of whatever. I don't know what I was holding. I wasn't even aware I was holding something. And I can never forget I'm so grateful for them being a part of the journey. Without that visceral experience, it would not be possible to drop whatever it is that I had for fear of animals or other beings.
That's
It was
so
beautiful.
beautiful. I can even say I had something very similar when I was like, okay, how is it going to be with dogs? Oh my goodness. And then one of them, Chini, came to me while I was sleeping, laying on the bed, and she basically came to me very close to my belly, and I started hugging her, and that experience was so profound. It was like holding a baby, and it basically made me travel back in time in my lifetimes, like thousands of years ago when I was a cave woman with a baby. So that's just one example of how profound it is to also have these kind of experiences with animals, and nothing to be scared about. Like you said, like you had this resistance and like, oh my god, how is it going to be? And like in Bombay it's usually street dogs and so on, and I'm not really sure. And here you go, you had this very profound experience that you will never forget.
And
Yes.
the way I see them is that they are healers. Like they are very powerful healers, and they also are, like they know their roles in a sense. Like there was one of the ceremonies where, you know, Dookie, one of our dogs, was like, I have this intuitive way of communicating with our dogs. And one ceremony, I was like, okay, you can't come. You have to stay in the room and stop disturbing us. And they respected it. And the next ceremony, it was like, when I went up to quiet them, it was like, you're stopping me from doing my job. That's what, Dookie was saying. It's like, let me go down and do my job. And that is when I opened the door and that whole experience happened. So it's like, he was insisting. He was just not letting go. Even though I went 2 or 3 times, he was like, no, I have to be down there. And I'm not going to give up
Oh,
until you actually let me down there. So it's like the
thank
whole
you.
experience is happening at such a level of consciousness that it's so out of our normal way of thinking. And that's why, what you said much earlier was that you can't describe it in words, because the whole experience is beyond the intellect, it's beyond the mind. The mind is just a tiny part of the experience, but there is so much more. There's the body, there's the heart, there's the mind, but then there is so much more to it, where you start just experiencing the energy, the interconnection, the animals, everything, the nature of Brazil. It's so profound. Like a lot of people are doing ayahuasca in cities, in New York City and Berlin, wherever. And it's like the whole experience is so different when you're doing it in the home of the plant, where it's actually growing. It's not just anywhere. It's like you're in the environment where you can receive all of the 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 full potential of the lesson.
It really feels like home to drink ayahuasca in its home. It feels
Yeah.
like a welcoming home experience, to really feel in touch with the home of ayahuasca, the mother of nature.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to dive into is, you had expressed towards the end of the retreat that you also got to see us in action. Like that was one of the key things for you, was like seeing us holding the ceremony, using our power, like actually like being in authority, and but a very different kind of authority to authoritarianism, and
Mm.
at the same time holding love and compassion and space for emotion. So there was a lot of energies that usually are considered to be exclusive. Either you have power and you're this strong man, or you're this loving, gentle, feminine energy, but it's uncommon to find a fusion of that. And that's one of the things I remember, you're talking about, like it's something that you can only experience. And until you experience it, you don't even know that something like this exists. So
Right.
I want to hear more about that, especially now that it's been a few months. How that has unfolded, and from that we can also go into post-retreat.
So just living with the two of you and the dogs, it was a lesson in how one can live. If you see people live, it's like a practical hands-on experience on living. You know, like you go for pottery and you see how the craftsmen make the pots, as opposed to you are given the apparatus and you have to make it through watching a DIY video or like seeing some rule book. You're witnessing how it is possible to live. And for me, that was the biggest thing, that I could witness how one can live in harmony, have differences and yet, resolve them in harmony, have jokes, have humor, yet not be, sarcastic and necessarily biting. So a lot of things that I took for granted, I didn't even realize I took for granted, is like the way to live. And one of that was this masculine feminine idea that I had, that, oh, a strong man who's strict, like a strict father or a teacher or a grandfather, whereas a tender mother and like she's caring, as if fathers are always strict and mothers are always tender. Like, firstly itself, it was a stereotype that I was living with, and I had reinforced it multiple times. And maybe because of our cultural backdrop, it seemed like that. But there, I witnessed both of you, and I witnessed the feminine and the masculine and the whole spectrum in both of you. So it felt that, again, those ideas, this whole retreat was about all the ideas I held. I had to like throw them all out because I was operating incorrectly. It's like I got the wrong book for life. It's like, dude, everything is incorrect. Everything needs to go out and I have to restart life. So I don't even know which experiences I should talk about, like how to look at food, how to look at life, how to look at what I choose to do in a day. Like Ruta spoke about energy management, like you have so much energy in the day. What do you want to do today? Because everything that you choose to do will take some of your energy. And some activities will maybe replenish some of it. So look at it like that, not necessarily time management or money management, but that was so powerful because I never looked at it like that. So, and that came over like having like some juice and just a by the way sentence that Ruta threw in. And that's what I mean. I was like, whoa, it's like a jewel somebody's throwing. I need to catch it and just lose in the sands of Bahia. So it's like that, like, dollops of wisdom being passed around because you live it. So for somebody who's not lived it, everything, for me, it seemed so profound. And this was one of those things. And so many more lessons that my book of like things I learned, kind of like, I'm like running out of pages. What do I write? Everything I want to remember and write. But essentially it was that almost everything I came in as a person full of ideas, and I left as a person who did not carry those ideas back, and at least questioned. Maybe through habits and patterns, I still carry some of those. And that's the work now, that now I need to question everything. And that's what the retreat essentially taught me, that all these pre-programmed ideas and ways of being, it doesn't help me in going to the next level. If I want to go to the next level, I have to drop everything. And that's what, like, the deeper I go, the higher level I will climb. So the layers and the levels which you spoke about really stays with me, to penetrate deeper into the layers, to go to the next levels of power or understanding or energy.
So basically what happens is that you practically learned how to embody everything that you want to embody. You saw the embodiment in us because we are who we are. And then you practically saw like, oh, this is how it looks like to be empowered, to be in balance between feminine and masculine. This is what it means to be in alignment. This is what it means to be intentional. This is what it means to invest your energy in the right ways on things that are your true priorities, etc., etc. So there's, like you said, gazillion of different things that you learn, but the primary thing and the overarching umbrella was the embodiment. And then you came out after the retreat with embodiment. You didn't just went out and left with a notebook full of stuff that you wrote down. You came out as a new version of yourself who also learned how to embody.
And
Absolutely, that's it.
yeah, and to add to that, it's like there is the monkey mind which copies. Like it copies because it sees, and it's like, okay, I want that. Like how the monkey sees me eating an apple and now it wants an apple. So you see, I want this behavior. You start copying it at that level of that very primitive mind. And on top of that, there are like, the way I like to talk about it is that super consciousness is that there are transmissions taking place energetically. Like being in that energy field, things are unlocking and opening within you, even that you don't realize. Like you said, I don't even know that I need to drop this or that I'm carrying this, but it just gets dropped. It's like things happen that are not even at the cognitive level, but 10 days later, you are just a different person. Then you go back to your environment, and then people are telling you, wait, but you used to do things that way. And you do not even realize that you changed something so significant that was such a part of you, and your whole identity has shifted. And one of the things you were talking on our last calls was, identity shifting. And the other thing that also I remembered an insight you had during the retreat, or we had collectively, was that when you are in an idea, suppose the father is the strict masculine, it actually prevents you from seeing the other side. Like I will not acknowledge my father being anything else because I have learned to only see him from this idea. And when that idea drops, I automatically see my father is a lot more. So again, it's not this heavy therapy work. It's like the idea drops, and all of a sudden I can just see the person at a much wider spectrum. And all of these shifts and unlocks keep happening. The thing is, you can journal a book full of journals or 20,000 books full. What is the most important is what is retained in your system will is already done. Like that work is already done. You don't even have to do more. Like that's why, today, just before we started this, we were like, should I go and get my journal? I'm like, it's great that you have that journal to remember those insights which you need to practice. But let's talk about what has already shifted and what has stuck and what is organic. And it's so much that you don't need to bring that journal. Like with the journal, obviously, we could be talking for hours and just do one podcast that is just Gargi on ayahuasca and Gargi in the retreat. But yeah, there's so much, and
Yeah,
it's just about what the highlights. It's like the
yeah,
highlights of the it's
yeah.
so let's dive into Gargi 4 months after the retreat. And in those 4 months, like you have shared a lot with us already
Mm.
about things you never imagined yourself doing are suddenly easy, or that you were struggling with are now easy, like public speaking, for example, walking into a room and just being charismatic authority and
Owning
people.
the
Yes.
space.
So let's
Yeah,
let's dive into that.
yeah. I think the fundamental takeaway that happened empirically through embodiment by seeing how you do it, and also as a lesson in the book, the one thing was to be more aware. And I remember you telling me to you, if you forget everything, if you lose this book, just remember higher degree of awareness, because that's what ayahuasca and the retreat, I experienced it, to take that back into life, and somehow it stuck, and I had already practiced it. So in the last 4 months, I feel like the level of awareness with which I'm living is quite heightened.
I
Even in
just want to
this,
pause here for 1 second because right now you're framing it as level of awareness, but my original thing was, watch your mind and what you're saying to yourself. And you had repeated that several times later months when we had our catch-up calls. Like that was the most important thing. And I was like, that sounds so trivial. Like, everyone is saying be mindful, everyone is saying watch your thoughts. But that's what you said just now, is that it was that you actually practiced it in the moment in such a high degree of awareness that you actually understood what it means to do that in that way of, it's not just a lesson in a self-help book of like watch your mind, but it's like, okay, I watch my mind not only do I watch my mind, I watch it with a very heightened level of awareness, and I know what to do with it. Because otherwise, I'm just watching my mind being chaotic and crazy, and I just hate myself for my mind, or I hate my mind. I'm like, I want to get rid of my mind. But no, I don't need to get rid of my mind. My mind is precious. It's a very powerful tool. What I'm doing is I'm starting to train it to be intentional, to become a power that I.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And exactly like how you said, I'd read it a million times before, be more aware, increase your awareness levels. But it's like, the difference between people saying, oh, go cycling, try cycling. But with you, I actually cycled. So now when I'm back, I don't have to remind myself, I must cycle, I should cycle, it's good for me. It's like naturally now I cycle. It's there now. So same, it's like you mention it so that I don't forget it, but it's almost hard to be any other way. It's like the awareness level has already increased. I just need to make sure that somehow I don't slip back into older patterns, because that's another thing you had warned me, that when we go back into our previous setup, maybe our previous selves, or you may be triggered in certain ways and you may lose the experiences wisdom. And that's what happens in many other retreats, that they have these profound experiences, but then if the right guidance and the hand holding and the integration is not done well, you come back and you're back to your old ways. And that was what I was really afraid of, almost like that would be a colossal waste of everything. So somehow I continued cycling, and that heightened degree of awareness, at least now I know, like, oh, I feel like eating something sweet. Now I have the choice. I have that one additional pause where I can choose to pick it, or I can say, no, that's just a trigger, an urge, a filling up of time. And that has a tremendous effect on my life, because now I'm not in that automated state of the animal is not driving it. There is a sense of power, a sense of control over like what I can choose to do and not do. And it increases as I spend more and more time. And that's why life has gone to another level. And with this degree of awareness, the other thing that is happening is that somehow I am more confident of my own self, my own actions, and I'm willing to welcome life in all its glory. Instead of, wanting to like be protective or like wear a helmet and say, oh no, what will happen? I'm like, oh yes, let's see what happens. Somehow that fear has gone, the sense of like, what if something goes wrong has been replaced to what possible magic can happen. So a lot of magic is naturally unfolding effortlessly. For me, I always assume that I have to make a lot of effort and then I will get the result. Here, the effort has been made maybe in the retreat and in the embodiment, as you said. Like now, it's there, it's happening. So now I walk into the room and somebody asks me to share a few words on the mic, and I do it without even an iota of that fear of public speaking. Although there are 40 very renowned people in the audience, I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say that. And even when they upload or take videos, there is a much smaller degree of external validation. I'm just happy that I didn't waste their time, and that I didn't either get too cocky or too afraid or any of that. I spoke what I had to speak, and everybody is happy. And if they clap too much, it doesn't stay with me that, oh, look how amazing it is. It's like, move on, because now life will unfold another experience to move on to what next life can offer. So I'm actually, the biggest thing in the last 4 months is I'm really enjoying life. I love living, and I'm most excited about what might happen. Of course, there are like ups and downs and emotions and challenges, but I feel like I'm armed to deal with most things that life might throw my way.
So I just want to reflect on something that you said, like you were talking about colossal waste of time, wasting their time and all of the. That's one way of looking at it, which in a way is like, if I have to reframe it, what I would say is like you are now honoring time, you're now honoring life, valuing things for what they are. Like you can see that, wow, this is so precious. Life is precious. I want to enjoy it. I don't want to waste it in fear. And I'm not wasting my time procrastinating, waiting for things to be perfect, for them to be right, for it to be safe. I am honoring life by living it fully. So again, it's that shift, like, wow, let me take this and use it, not just like diminish the value and be lost in my own stories about fears and all of this. So that's a big shift.
Would you share a little bit more about different contexts? How did it affect your different areas of life? So when we speak about your health, for example, when we speak about your work, your business, your family, your relationships, just a little bit more context in what exactly shifted.
It is similar to what you said, the stories that I lived with forever. Now I have dropped most of them. So all my interactions, be it family, be it work, and be it with myself, they are far more authentic. They're far more like real. I'm not bullshitting myself. I'm not living in fear or delusion or some sort of hope of how it is or some narrative. Even with my family, I've become like an adult from a child, which was a big shift for me. Like, I know that I'm already much older, but my dynamic with my parents was always a parent-child dynamic. But now I feel that we've become peers. I've started seeing them like that, and somehow that's reciprocating from their side as well. So we're friends and we love hanging out now. And there is that tension that sometimes parents and children have that is almost like that's dissolving. So that's huge for me because I love them and I've always wanted this. But somehow I felt that they're not doing their role. Why are they always treating me like a child? And I guess in this retreat, I discovered that they're doing so because I am being the child. How else will it happen? No, like, so I stopped being the child. I stopped being the way I was and I started being far more real. So it shifted quite quickly with them. And we have very mature conversations. So that is one of the huge achievements, I would say, like for me. At work, I would always be afraid earlier that will I make it big? Will it become this huge success? Will it make so much more money? Will it be the top startup of India, etc.? Now I have no such external ambition. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the way I operate is how can I add value? Who am I? Is the way I work true reflection of who I am? Am I spending time on the right things? Am I being kind to the team? Are we all cohesively, harmoniously having fun and finding a sense of meaning and purpose? And actually, it's been quite phenomenal. When I dropped all those things, we are making more money than we did before. Far more people are cognizant of our brand, and the team is happier, healthier. And my direct colleagues have told me that you stop being that, insistent or moody, whatever the words they choose about how I was. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad because I was holding this tension in me that will this work? Will this work? Will this work? I have to make it work as if I'm the only one who's going to make it work through some powering of action and effort. But all these old stories have left me. So now I'm like, it's like going with the flow. Instead of fighting life, you ride on that wave instead of fighting the wave. So I'm surfing through life. So that's been phenomenal at work and at family level. And the biggest one has been with my own self. I feel the way I speak to myself has been far more easy, calming. I'm no more like the person who wants to do 20 things in a day. And if I've not done them, I'm super self-critical and I feel like a loser. None of that. It's like I'm doing my best and I'm enjoying life. And I'm actually achieving a lot more than I did before because I'm not having that additional pressure and tension in me. So and again, this is all from living with you because you all were so comfortable in your own skin. And you never felt that ache of like, oh, am I not doing enough? Am I enough? Because I guess you found that power in you that I am enough, that you are
That's
already your best self. So that's what I picked up and I saw it, I guess, and that's how I'm living it in my
That's
way.
another great reflection because that's exactly also how I remember how in the very beginning you had a lot of FOMO. Oh my God, I'm fear of missing out. What if I don't go there and there and there and there and I have to do all of these things? Like, there's a lot of hectic energy at the time.
Yeah.
Then by the end of the retreat, again, like we spoke earlier, there was much more intentionality and much more investment of your energy, time, your love to the things that you love doing instead of like, oh, but what if I don't do all these 20 things on my to-do list? And now
Yeah.
you're really enjoying the process, like you said, instead of just focusing on the destination, instead of focusing on the next achievement, you actually celebrate life instead of chasing constantly like that, carrot that's hanging right in front of you. You're like, no, I actually enjoy my journey and I have fun along the way, and I love my relationships, and I love creating something amazing, and I love interacting with my team and my family and my friends and doing all these things, but they come from the right place. They don't come from lack, like, oh my God, I'm missing out on something. Now it just comes from abundance of life, and from desire to live life in alignment with who you really are. And now you also are able to say no to certain things and being like, no, I don't want to spend time on this thing. I don't want to do this thing. And now you're much more clear also how to set clear boundaries and how to prioritize whatever it is that you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Saying no, that's a big one, which I can now do almost effortlessly because it's clear.
Yeah, and just talking again about energy management, like you recovering all of that energy from all of those programs. Now, even if you're not consciously applying it in doing more, it becomes available for your consciousness, your being, to create reality more effortlessly. Like this is one of the things we talk about a lot, is that so much more can happen when you're not even doing anything, if you allow things to happen. But if you keep trying to force a particular result because you think it has to be that way, you are actually diminishing the possibilities of what all can happen. So again, when you're in that alignment, when you're centered, when you are connected, listening to all of your intelligences, your intuition, your mind, your heart, your body, everything, it's like, I know that this is what I have to do right now, and I do it. And I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to do 10 other things. I just do this. And suddenly magic is happening, but it's not magic. It's like now, like, what I can pull from my 600 plus ayahuasca experiences is that the reality is being created at a higher dimension. And when your energy is freed up, there's more energy at the higher dimensional level for reality to be created. So what we think is magic is only higher dimensional logic, where something else is receiving energy to make things happen, to bring the right opportunities to you, to bring the right people. And you are also open to listening to those opportunities and picking them up and using them. It's not like, oh, this doesn't make any rational sense, I will just not waste my energy there. No, it's like, wait a second, this I I I hear my intuition telling me do something with this. So I go there, I do this, I do that, and suddenly magic happens. So it becomes effortless because you're doing what you enjoy, you're doing what you love, and all your intelligences are making life and reality happen.
Nicely, beautiful.
One of the things I spoke about is, these super conscious coaching conversations where in few minutes everything changes. So you're having a problem with a certain individual in your business, and there was all of this perception that he is very authoritarian and you have to be careful and cautious and don't mess with him. He's evil. That's the word you use. He's evil. And I was like, then we had this coaching conversation where we quickly switched everything. And now what happened after that?
It's unreal because I remember feeling like that, feeling like I was at cross and I had to combat him. If we had to do well, I had to overpower him, or I had to solve this conflict, or something had to be done. And he was typically this man, stereotypical, powering his way through our business. And I was like, we will not let that happen. We will fight you. And that evening when we had the talk, you told me not to look at it like that. Firstly, Ruta, you said that if he's like that, that is because something inside him he's hurt. It's typically like like the external facade for somebody who is a child who has not who's going through pain, right? A pain. So that really touched me. And Tio, my takeaway was that to not give him so much power, to remember that he's just another person, and that I am powerful, and that nothing he does really can affect me, truly. And somehow I don't remember revising this the way I typically revise points, but I kind of just took it. And it so happened that it was New Year's Eve, and I'd wished everybody Happy New Year. And then I thought, why don't I wish him? Because it's Happy New Year. And I sent him a beautiful message. And because it's a new year for him. And he replied with a thumbs up. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And now he's come back to our office. He's, instead of troubling us, he's bought stuff from us. He's given us a huge order. And almost all my team members are surprised that instead of being this arch enemy trying to stop our business, he's recommending us borderline to other people and helping us grow the business. And all of this in a span of like 10 days. I was going to figure out how to solve this scene, but it solved. I don't know whether it's a New Year message, whether it's a change in things, whether it's, I don't know what it is, but it's solved or stuff has happened.
This is super consciousness. It's simple. You make the switch, you listen. You listen. Let me just send him a message. No attachment. I'm not trying to convince him. I'm not trying to win him over. I actually just want to wish him a happy new year. Your heart intelligence here is guiding you. Just do this. Suddenly, this super powerful nuisance is
Evil.
evil is a friend, an ally, a person giving you more business and recommending business. It's like unbelievable, unthinkable, and it's so powerful to realize how the world can shift when we start living this way, when we take ownership of our power and stop with all of these narratives inside us. So amazing.
Such a story.
Mind blowing. I'm so glad. I mean, I am thank you to you. Thank you, Rota, because this is not even during the retreat. This is not even ayahuasca. This was one of our catch-up calls where I just shared my pain and you gave me this insight. And I remember feeling like in sync when you were giving me that insight. And now life-changing for work-wise. So it was really nice. Thank you.
And that was the thing is that, you said like usually you take points, revise points, and you practice it and you strategize and figure it out. Here, it was like a download, a transmission. Like it was like for those 2 minutes, it was not Bombay and Brazil. We were there and you just got this and boom, it changed. Life changed.
Oh, man. So,
Even
yeah.
remember the phase when it was happening for those 2 minutes or however long it took. You were just like with those eyes, you were just
Yeah.
receiving, channeling, just like it's happening. Like the magic was happening in your body with you without you even having to do anything.
Realigned, like in the moment, and boom, like reality changes. Not just life changing, reality changes. Paradigm.
Paradigm shifting.
Wonderful.
Indeed.
Identity shifting. Like that's the term you reflected to us. Like
Yes.
you shifted your identity. I'm not this fighter. I'm not the weaker one who has to fight this battle. I'm a peer. We are on the same side, wanting the same thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we are coming to a close. Yeah, are there any thoughts you want to add about? Like I just want you to talk again about something you've told us privately, is that how people started responding to you in public speaking and how you also changed your own narrative after you give a speech or whatever. It's like you used to be a certain way and then suddenly like you realize, okay, I don't need to criticize myself and I can just enjoy the experience, and like people just started responding to your authority. And even without you asking or planning a speech, like people are like, here's the mic, talk. So like what happened there?
Yeah, I think that is almost confounding even to me. Like this can happen. It's stupefying that somebody who would be. I would want people to hear me earlier, but I would not have the courage to speak. And then if ever I was to speak, I would have the speech prepared and I would have rehearsed it. And I would be far more robotic. Although my points were my own, it didn't feel natural. Somehow now, simply because I'm more at ease with myself, like complete at ease. My body is not in tension, my mind is not in tension. Like I'm just natural. So the 2 or 3 occasions when I had to speak publicly, the first couple of them were like pre-invited like talks where I was supposed to give a talk. Even in that talk, I felt that I didn't prepare the way I usually do. It's just having a few ideas of what I want to share and going with the flow. And somehow, of all the times in my life, the way it has been received for that particular talk, I was quite overwhelmed because the applause, the reaction was real. I could see it. I didn't have to wait to ask them how they felt. It was a half an hour talk that went up to 45 minutes and no one once checked their phone. For me, that's like a huge thing today, right? Like there was no distraction. Everyone, we were like in a space shuttle together and me like just interacting. So for me, I feel that this kind of response I was aching to receive all my life, and I guess I didn't know how to get there. I always felt I have a lot to share, but I didn't have the mechanism. And so now that I'm aligned, I feel far more comfortable and balanced. Whenever and it happened multiple times that I was handed over the mic and I had to speak, and again it didn't occur to me that, oh, I'm public speaking and what should I say and cold feet. It just felt natural that I'm communicating. It's not even me. It almost felt like a message is coming through me. I have to just get out of my own head. I have to get out of my own way. I have to step out of this anxiety that would grip me every time I felt like I was given the mic and I must do something important and extraordinary. I just have to let it come through. And that is what has shifted the dynamic. And again, the appreciation as I receive, it's quite amazing. But I now naturally don't feel like, wow, everyone's clapping. It's like, okay, okay, I'm glad that happened, but I don't want to dwell too much into it. I don't want to get again into those narratives of what a good speaker I am, because those were the stories that I came with in for the retreat, that, oh, I'm so good at this, I'm not good at this, I'm excellent at this, I need to improve on this whole like mark
Yeah.
sheet I carry with me, my own resume, that this is who I am, this is my scorecard. It's like, drop this scorecard, that life is going to flow through me the more I drop this scorecard. So that's essentially what this new reality is about.
You basically came into the authority of I am who I am. Take it or leave it. Like it's that simple.
Owning it.
Owning it. And like that also, like you're talking about, is like it's you saw it in us, like you said, that we were in our authority, we were in our calmness. We were not trying to prove to you how good we are at
Yeah.
facilitating. Wait, look at our skills and this and
Yeah.
that. Like I remember in the first introduction, when I actually told you, like these are my credentials, you were like, holy shit, like I did not even know you have all of this experience, but I
Yeah.
didn't need to give you those credentials. Like it was just like, yeah, I know my authority. And I'm just telling you this is as a fact. Like it's just a fact. It's not like, oh, look at my authority. It's like, yeah, this is who I am, this is who she is. And that transmits too. Like that is a transmission. It's a living transmission where you get the permission to just own your authority. And it's so contradictory to the narratives out there of like public speaking is all about practice and repetition. If you practice your speech 30 times, you will deliver the perfect speech and everyone will clap for you. And it's like you said, it's a robot and you are not living it, you're not enjoying it, you're just going there and delivering a speech. And here it's like so organic. Like you said, you are in a space shuttle, but what you're doing, like what we were doing during the retreat, you're holding the energy, you're holding the space. The space is alive. And that's what you're doing in a talk. You're holding the space, you're holding everyone's energy, and they're all there with you. They're all alive with you. They're so connected that they don't even remember they have a phone. Forget checking with it. Like it's like, I am just here, fully present, because you are here, fully present. You're not in your head trying to remember the speech. You're not in your head trying to see how are they doing. You are just there and being you and delivering you. You're not delivering a speech, you're delivering you. So much more than just a speech. You're delivering your energy there. And that's what people are receiving. So it's I love that. That's why I really wanted to include that, because it was so powerful to see. Like I did not even try to become a public speaker. I wanted to, but I just became a public speaker. So I feel like that is a good place to wrap. You want to ask any
I
closing?
want to ask a closing takeaway. Like if you would have to describe in just a few words for whoever is listening to this, what would you like to tell them, whoever is listening, about the retreat, about your experience, about your life altering experience that shifted everything in your life in the last few months? What would you tell them?
I would start with saying that whenever you hear ayahuasca and you have those bells ringing about how it's going to be, firstly, drop those ideas because they will come in the way of the actual experience. Don't read too much about it. Don't get too involved with certain ideas about how it is. Go and live it for what it is and experience it. That's the first thing. Second thing, it's not a drug or a trip that you want to go on just like that. It's important to have the intention. It's important to ask yourself if you're ready for a life-changing experience, as opposed to a typical party drug, which maybe it's okay to take it casually because it's New Year's Eve or your birthday. This one is not that at all, although sometimes a lot of people put it in the same category. The third thing, actually, which should be the first thing, is the most important thing, which is whom you're doing it with. I feel incredibly lucky that I had a shaman in UTO and a guiding force in Ruta, and both of you, incredible life coaches, and hand holding me through that journey. And that is the reason it is life altering. It's not because of ayahuasca. Of course, ayahuasca played its role, but for me, it was the fact that the two of you took me along and were in that journey. So that is key, like whom you do it with and how you do it with, as opposed to just, I used to receive WhatsApp messages that, hey, ayahuasca circle this Thursday in so and so place. Do you want to join? And I was half tempted. I was that person. I would be like, oh, maybe I'm ready. Maybe ayahuasca is calling me. Maybe this is what it is. And I'm so glad I didn't say yes to that. I mean, you can never tell how life would have panned out. But the point is that I'm sure that those experiences were not this level of energy containment, of curation, of amplification, of profoundness. So it's important that whoever chooses this journey to do it with safe, reliable, experienced coaches who know what they're doing, because it can go anyway. It was so intense. Had you not been there, I don't know how it would have panned out for me. It's almost, I mean, at the risk of sounding extreme, I would call it dangerous, because I did feel so extremely emotional. I don't know how it would have panned out had I not had somebody who knew how to guide me through this outburst of emotion. So most important, whom you're doing with and how they can guide you. Second, drop your ideas. And third, I forgot, but yeah, first is most important. That's it.
Excellent. This was super
Amazing.
powerful, amazing.
Thank you so much. You're so amazing. And we love you so much. It's just, oh.
Likewise. Family now. Yeah.
Yeah. Like my closing thought on it is like, you said when you came for when we started the retreat, you thought you were intruding in our family dynamic and you just became part of the family. We sucked you in.
That's what happens.
And it was so organic, it's so natural. Like, it's just so, again, the idea of like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to behave in this setting. And there are no rules in that way. Like the rules are just about safety, and otherwise it's all organic. Like just allow it to flow and be real, be authentic.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sending
Yes.
lots of love, hugs, and kisses to Mumbai and Mumbai.
You missed it.
Bombay.
Bombay and Mumbai. Mumbai.
And speak to you very soon then.
Yes.
Yes, I will. Thank you. This has been, I love reliving it. I feel energized and empowered even more.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Speak very soon.
Yes.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao.